Yassine, I'm growing old, man. I am growing old. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start the sharh, the explanation of ilm al-tafsir min al-nuqaya. And what I'm going to do first is, as a madkhal, as an introduction, I'm going to be speaking about al-ta'rifu bil-musannif. Who is the author of this book? And then I'm going to go into al-ta'rifu bil-musannaf. And then I'm going to talk about the book, inshallah ta'ala. So first I'm going to talk about the author, and then I'm going to talk about the book, inshallah ta'ala. The author of this book is Jalaluddin Abdul Rahman ibn Abi Bakr ibn Muhammad ibn Sabiq al-Din al-Khudayri al-Suyuti. He's known as Jalaluddin al-Suyuti, in simple. Jalaluddin al-Suyuti rahimahullah. The Shaykh rahimahullah, he was born the year 849 Hijriya, and he died the year 911 Hijriya. So he will be how old? 62, right? He will be 62, correct? 62 years of age, right? That's how old he was when he died, rahimahullah. Scholars who've written about his biography, they said he has more than 1,000 books. 1,000 books. Just over 1,000 books. Some of them are volumes, and some of them are just awraq, couple of pages. Okay? Suyuti doesn't need anyone to talk about his biography. The reason is because he wrote 2 books in talking about himself. He has a kitab called Uṣūl al-Muḥādharah في تاريخ مصر والقاهرة, where he talked about himself. And he also wrote another book talking about himself, and he called it التحدث بنعمة الله. التحدث بنعمة الله, speaking about the blessing of Allah on you. He wrote those 2 books, and he talked about himself. And he says the following. So we'll just read from what he said about himself. He says in his book Husn al-Muḥādharah, he said, وَشَرَعْتُ فِي التَّصْنِيفِ, I started to author في سنة 66, when the year was 66, referring to 866. وبلغت مؤلفاتي إلى الآن 300 كتب. And as till now, I have 300 books, he said. سوى ما غسلته ورجعت منه, excluding the books I washed, I got rid of, and I came back. The ones that I've allowed to be published, the ones that are out there and I agreed for its publication is 300 so far, he said. Okay? He said, وَسَافَرْتُ بِحَمْدِ اللَّهِ, based on the blessing of Allah, I have traveled, he said, إِلَى بِلَادِ الشام. I traveled to Sham, وَالْحِجَاز, وَالْيَمَنِ, وَالْهِنْد, وَالْمَغْرِبِ. I traveled to all of those places. He said, وَلَمَّا حَجَجْتُ, when I went to do Hajj, he said, شَرِبْتُ مَاءَ الزَّمْزَمْ, I drank the Zamzam water. لِأُمُورٍ, for many reasons. Many reasons is why I drank the Zamzam water. The first he mentioned is, أن أصل في الفقه, I want to reach fiqh إلى مرتبة الشيخ سراج الدين البلقيني. I want to reach the level of Siraj al-Din al-Bulqini in fiqh. I want to read his. Are you there, brothers? The reason why I drank the Zamzam water was I want to reach the level of fiqh Siraj al-Din al-Bulqini reached. وفي الحديث, and in hadith I want to reach إلى مرتبة ابن حجر, the level of Hafiz ibn Hajar. That was the reason why I drank the Zamzam water. وأفتيت, I gave fatwa سنة 71, when the year was 71, 871. وعقدت إملاء الحديث, I sat down to dictate hadiths سنة 72, 1 year later, 72. I was dictating hadiths. He then said, وَرُزِقْتُ, Allah gave me, provided for me, التَّبَحُّرْ, I'm an ocean, he said, in 7 sciences, ocean. التفسير والحديث والفقه والنحو والمعاني والبيان والبديع على طريقة العرب والبلغاء, I reached, he said. I'm an imam in tafsir. I'm an imam, تبحر, in al-hadith, in al-fiqh, in nahu, in ma'ani, in bayan, also in al-ma'ani, and in bayan, and in al-badi'. The 3 types of balagha: al-ma'ani, al-bayan, and al-badi'. In what way, lakin? Ala tariqat al-arab wal-bulagha. The level I am at in the Arabic language, and I am in balagha, is reached the level of the Arabs, the Arab al-Aqha. He's an Arab himself, but he's talking about the Arabs whose language hasn't tainted. لا على طريقة العجم. I'm not like the foreigners who've become, ignorant of the Arabic language. I'm not like that. وأهل فلسفة. والذي أعتقده. He said, look at this. He said, والذي أعتقد, that which I believe. أن الذي وصلت إليه, I believe that which I have reached. من هذه العلوم السبعة, those 7 sciences, what I have reached regarding it. سوى الفقه, other than fiqh, والنقول التي طلعت عليها فيها, and also the quotes and the references that I have stood over. لم يصل إليه ولا وقف عليه. No one has reached it, and no one has come to that level من مشايخي, from my teachers. I have surpassed my teachers. Only what science has he given an exception? Fiqh. He gave an exception to al-fiqh. He said, فضلا عمن دونهم, let alone, forget, I passed my teachers, let alone those who are lower than my teachers. وأما الفقه فلا أقول ذلك فيه. I won't claim that in fiqh. I won't. بل شيخي فيه أوسع نظرا. My teacher has a more vast what? He has more vast knowledge than me. وأطول باعا. And he's reached a higher level than me. And he's talking about Zakaria al-Ansari. And then he went on to saying, وَقَدْ كَمُلَتْ عِنْدِي. Allah has completed with me, الآن, and now that I'm speaking, I'm writing this, آلات الاجتهاد. I'm a mujtahid mutlaq. بحمد الله تعالى, based on the praise of Allah. أقول ذلك, and I say this, تحدثا بنعمة الله. I'm only saying this out of speaking about the blessings Allah gave me subhanahu wa ta'ala. لا فخرا. I'm not saying to boast and brag. That's not what I am doing. This statement caused Jalaluddin an uproar. When he claimed ijtihad, they got angry with him. Because the people of his time, they believed the door of ijtihad is closed. They believed it was closed, it's over. What are you talking about? There is no ijtihad. The chapter of ijtihad is blocked. It is locked. There is no ijtihad. What are you talking about? Are we all together, brothers? And so he said, I will debate anyone in this issue. Deen Suyuti said this. I will debate anyone in the issue of ijtihad. Are we all together, brothers? Am I making sense here? And he said, I will only debate a person of knowledge. And he said, a blind follower by the consensus of the scholar, he's not considered min hiyazi ahli al-ilm. He's not considered from the realm of people of knowledge. Ibn Abdul Barr transmitted that ijma' and Ibn al-Qayyim before him. A muqallid la yu'addu min jumlati ahli al-ilm. Bi-ijma'. Ibn Abdul Barr mentioned that in his kitab Jami' Bayan al-Ilm al-Fadli. Before him, Ibn al-Qayyim mentions in his Nuniyah that the muqallid, the blind follower, he's not considered from the people of knowledge. So I will only debate a person who's not a blind follower. In other words, a person who's a mujtahid. That's the only person I will debate in this issue. Are we all together, brothers? That's the only person I would debate. And then he said, but when he comes to me as a mujtahid, he's already accepted that there is ijtihad, so the debate is over. You get the point? Jalaluddin al-Suyuti said that ijtihad is open. And they said to him, no, it's not open. Ijtihad is over. It's closed. No one is a mujtahid. And he said, there is ijtihad. And then when they gave him a hard time, he said, okay, I will debate on this issue. But remember, I won't debate a blind follower, because a blind follower is not considered from the people of knowledge by the consensus of the scholars. There's no difference of opinion. A muqallid is not considered a person of knowledge. And so I'm not going to sit with an ignorant person. I'm only going to sit with somebody of knowledge. And so if he is not a muqallid, that person has to be a what? A mujtahid, a person of knowledge, a person of ilm. Okay? And he said, if he isn't a muqallid, he's a mujtahid. And if he's a mujtahid, then the debate is over before it even starts. Because he's accepted, when he comes forward, that he himself is a mujtahid. And so this debate doesn't need to proceed. Jalaluddin al-Suyuti, his life and who he was, it's, rahimahullah, long and lengthy. But what I can say was, he's written many great books. Many great books. Each of his books, they can be spoken about in great details. Like in I Don't Believe personally, he has written a book greater and better than his kitab al-Itqan fi ulum al-Quran. This book, there's no book like it. This book, al-Itqan fi ulum al-Quran, a student of knowledge has to try to finish it once a month in the course of his life. Once a month. Every month, once, at least read it. Al-Itqan fi ulum al-Quran. That book is one of the best books he has written, rahimahullah ta'ala. So, that's who Surah al-Bulqi, that's who Jalaluddin al-Suyuti is. And he's from Egypt, from a place called Uṣūl. Suyuti comes from a place called Uṣūl in Egypt, which till today is still called Uṣūl. And he died the year 911 Hijriya, rahimahullah rahmatan wasi'ah. Now let's go into the book. This book, what is this book? This book is called, and it's known as إتمام الدراية لقراء النقايا. Niqaya, I mean Nuqaya, both ways said. Okay? Which became very well known as Kitab al-Nuqaya. The book al-Nuqaya has 12 sciences in there. It's a big book. How many sciences does it have? It has 12 sciences in there. The author wrote that book, the Kitab al-Nuqaya, when he was 22 years old. He only wrote it when he was what? When he was 22 years of age. Suyuti. I will mention at the end, inshallah. The Kitab al-Nuqaya, he wrote it when he was 22 years of age. And in there he mentions Balagha, the three signs, al-Badi', al-Bayan, al-Ma'ani, Bayan, Badi', al-Ma'ani, Nahu, Sarf, all of that he talks about there. And one of the books that are in there is what? Ilmu Tafsir is one of the books in there. So we took that book out of the big book, al-Nuqaya. The 12 sciences that are in there, we just took one science out. Are you with me, brothers? That's where it comes from, this book. But the author, rahimahullah, even though he wrote it when he was 22, he added 2 sciences in there after he reached age of 40. And those 2 sciences are ilm al-tib and ilm al-tashrih. He added those 2 sciences in there at the early stages of his life. Now let's go into what it means, ilm al-tafsir. That's what he chaptered. He called it ilm al-tafsir. He called it. So we have to define ilm and we have to define tafsir. Ilm is naqidul jahli, is the opposite of ignorance. And the technical definition of the word ilm is idraku shay'i ala ma huwa alayhi idrakan jazima. It is to perceive something as it is with certainty. That's what it means. It's perception of something as it is with certainty. Ibn Abdul Barr rahimahullah in his kitab Jami' Bayan al-Ilmi wa Fadli, he said, قال أهل العلم والنظر حد العلم التبيين وإدراك المعلوم على ما هو فيه فمن بان له الشيء فقد علمه قالوا والمقلد لا علم له ولم يختلفوا في ذلك. That the word ilm is it means when something becomes clear to you. That's what knowledge is. And then he said after that, وَالْمُقَلِّدْ لَا عِلْمَ لَهُ. The blind follower, there's no knowledge with him. وَلَمْ يَخْتَلِفُوا فِي ذَلِكَ. And the scholars did not differ on that. Because nothing has become clear to the blind follower. So we now understand what ilm means. What does the word ilm al-tafsir together, what does it mean? We know what ilm. Now we want to go to the, sorry. We mentioned ilm, we haven't mentioned tafsir. Tafsir in the Arabic language, it means at-tawdih wal-bayan. The word tafsir in the Arabic language is at-tawdih wal-bayan. It's clarifying something. It's to clarify something. It's to make something apparent. And it's taken from ma'khudun min al-fasri. It's taken from al-fasr. Al-fasr. That's what it's taken from. Which means al-kashfu wal-wuduh. It is to make something apparent and it's to make it clear. That's what it means. But the word tafsir, when the ulama of the sharia, the scholars of the sharia, when they say tafsir, what they mean by that is bayanu. It's to clarify, to make apparent. So see the word clarifying is still in the technical meaning. But this time it's not clarifying anything other than the what? Other than the Quran. It is بيان مراد الله عز وجل. Is to clarify the intent of Allah عز وجل. من كلامه, from his speech. المنزل, the speech of Allah that was sent down on على محمد, on نبي الله Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, بحسب الطاقة البشرية, in accordance to the human ability. You're going to try to explain what Allah intended, okay, from his speech that he sent down on Muhammad, all in accordance to your ability and how much you're able to do it. That's what tafsir means. That's what tafsir means. But here, he said, ilm tafsir. And he didn't say at-tafsir. There's a problem here now. And that problem is, if we look at the muhtawayat al-kitab, what the book consists of, if we look at this book that we've got here, the Nuqaya, we find out that this book doesn't just deal with ilm al-tafsir, meaning the definition that we just gave, clarifying the meaning and the intent behind Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala in his wordings that he has sent down on Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in accordance to your ability. That's not what he did here. He brought other things which have nothing to do with tafsir, rather more general than tafsir. So what would have been better is if he could have called it ulumul Quran. The reason is because ulumul Quran is a more general term than the word ilm tafsir, because ilm tafsir falls under ulumul Quran, and this book is more of ulumul Quran than ilm tafsir, because in there he's going to mention other issues. He's going to mention other issues. So this book doesn't just talk about principles of how to do tafsir. No, it doesn't. That is called ilm tafsir, or Uṣūl tafsir, or Qawā'id tafsir, which all mean the same. Lakin ulumul Quran is more comprehensive. It talks about how the Quran came down, what came down first, what was the last that came down. It also talks about when they came down. You see, which one of them was Makki, which of them is Madani, وَمَا إِلَى ذَلِكَ. All of that is going to be mentioned here by the author rahimahullah. So this, to be very honest, should not be called ilm al-tafsir. It should be called what? It should be called ulum al-Quran, the science of the Quran. فكان الأليق أن يسمي هذا الفصل بعلوم القرآن. Because we're going to learn al-masail, comprehensive masail that are connected to the Quran. When it came down, how the Quran was compiled. And it will also talk about how to do tafsir of the Quran and some issues related to that. Are we all together, brothers? Am I making sense here? Now.
قال السيوطي رحمه الله: علم التفسير علم يبحث فيه عن أحوال الكتاب العزيز، وينحصر في مقدمة 55 نوعا. المقدمة: القرآن منزل على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم للإعجاز بسورة منه، والسورة الطائفة الترجمة توقيفا المترجمة توقيفا وأقلها 3 آيات، والآية طائفة من كلمات القرآن متميزة بفصل، ثم من فاضل وهو كلام الله في الله، ومفضول وهو كلامه تعالى في غيره، وتحرم قراءته بالأعجمية وبالمعنى، وتفسيره بالرأي لا تأويله.
Some of you guys are confusing your notes. The notes that you have is the sharah and the matan are merged together. So you would explained it, and he put in brackets the matan. And so what I should have done was put the matan at the top for you, and then the sharh separate. But we're going to teach the matan. Inshallah ta'ala, just take the notes. You just take notes, and you benefit that way. That was a mistake on my side. You should have had the matan separated from the sharah. But right now you have the sharah and the matan together. But it's better for you. Later you can go to Suyuti Sharah, inshallah ta'ala. And it's been translated in English for the first time. No one's translated the Nuqaya with the Sharah like that. You guys are the first people to have it. So there might be mistakes. If you come across any mistakes, inshallah, bring it to my attention. قال السيوطي رحمه الله, Imam al-Suyuti mentioned here at the beginning, he mentioned 7 things. Write this down, everyone. 7 points Suyuti mentioned. Suyuti mentioned how many? He mentioned 7 points, rahimahullah. Point number 1, the definition of ilm al-tafsir. He defined tafsir. What Firas just read are 7 points. The first one is في تعريف علم التفسير, the definition of علم التفسير. Point number 2. Point number 2. في حصر أنواع علوم الحديث, restricting the types of علوم القرآن. Can you restrict it to a number, the علوم القرآن, and say this is the number of علوم القرآن types there are? Can you say that? We'll talk about that in this. He mentions that. Point number 3, تعريف المقدمة. What does مقدمة mean? What does the word مقدمة mean? And what's the difference between مقدمة and مقدمة? مقدمة and مقدمة. What's the difference between the two? Number 4, في تعريف القرآن العظيم, defining the Quran, the definition of the Quran. And we'll be speaking about 3 points there that the author rahimahullah said. في تعريف القرآن العظيم, we're going to speak about 3 points inshallah ta'ala when we're there. Number 5, في تعريف السورة, the definition of surah. The definition of a surah. What does surah mean? What's the definition of it? Number 6, في فضائل القرآن, the virtues of the Quran, وآياته, and the verses of the Quran, the virtues connected to that as well. We're going to talk about virtues of the Quran and the verses from the Quran. And last but not least, the 7th point that the author here mentioned is في حكم قراءة القرآن بالعجمية. في حكم قراءة القرآن بالعجمية, reading the Quran in a foreign language. Reading the Quran in a foreign language. Those are the 7 points that the author mentioned in the beginning. Are we all together? At the beginning, the author mentions those 7. So we're now going to go through each and every one of those. The first one is what? في تعريف علم التفسير. He started by saying علم التفسير is a what? علم يبحث فيه عن أحوال الكتاب العزيز. That's what he said. It's a science where in it you study about the reality and the situation regarding the book of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Ilm al-Tafsir is a science where you're going to study, you're going to learn, you're going to look into. What are you going to study and what are you going to look into? You're going to study and you're going to look into the situation regarding the Quran. That's what you're going to research. That's what you're going to look at. Are we all together? That's point number 1 finished now, alhamdulillah. We defined what ilm al-tafsir means, right? The second point now, inshallah ta'ala. Point number 2 that the author mentioned, which is في حصر أنواع علوم القرآن, restricting. Can you restrict the Quran, the ulum al-Quran, to an amount? How many types did he restrict it to? If you look at your note, it says وَيَنْحَصِرُ فِي مُقَدِّمَةٍ وخمسة وخمسين نوعا. 55 types. He's saying that the ulum al-Quran is in how many types? 55 types. خمسة 55, right? خمسة وخمسين. وينحصر في مقدمة. He made it in an introduction. He said that the ulum al-Quran is in 55 types. Are you with me, brothers? There's a book that he wrote before this. He wrote a big book before this. And he called it التحبير. If you look at your notes, you'll see it. وعملت كتابا في علوم القرآن اسمه التحبير. He said, what I did was, I authored a book in علوم القرآن, I called it التحبير. وأوصلت الأنواع إلى 100 نوع. And I reached it to how many types? So pay attention here. He's saying that the علوم القرآن, I made it reach 100 types in my other book, التحبير. Are we all together? I'm at 102. When he authored his kitab al-Itqan, the book I said that's gold, al-Itqan fi ulum al-Quran, he put it together in how many? 80. 80 types. Okay? And in this book, how many did he make it? He made it 55. He made it 55. There's another sheikh, his name is called Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Sa'id ibn Aqilat al-Makki. He has a kitab called Al-Ziyadat wal-Ihsan fi ulum al-Quran. He made it reach 154 types. It's a big book, I have it. He took everything in Al-Itqan and he added more to it. And he himself said, to be very honest, I could have actually pushed it to 400 types. Easily. So when Suyuti is saying here, the ulum al-Quran, the science of the Quran is 55, he means, when I summarize it from what? From my kitab al-Itqan, my other book al-Itqan. When I summarize it, I can bring it into 55 types. But he doesn't mean that the types of ulum al-Quran is only 55, because there are other people who've written more than that. Okay? He himself has written more than that. So what he's referring to here is, it is 55 types. Is 55 types in accordance to my summarization from my other book, Al-Itqan. Okay? So here in this book we're going to be taking 55 types. Point number 3. He mentions the term al-muqaddimah. He says introduction. The Arabs, they say muqaddimah and they say muqaddamah. Muqaddimah and what? Al-muqaddamah. Muqaddimah and muqaddamah. So he's saying muqaddimah. If you make it a kasrah, which is muqaddimah, it means it's an introduction for whatever's coming. It's a start for whatever's coming. But when you say muqaddamah, it means it makes the person surpass everyone else. Now, 4th point. So the word muqaddimah in general, in Arabic, in English, it means introduction. Point number 4 that the author mentioned. He mentioned the definition of the Quran. Al-Quran al-Azim. And what was the definition he gave? He gave the Quran's definition as Al-Quran munazzalun ala Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam lil-i'jazi bi suratin minhu. Let's cover it together. He says the Quran, the definition for it is munazzalun ala Muhammadin. Write whatever I'm saying, brothers. You can benefit by writing, okay? Al-Quran, the Quran is munazzalun, it's sent down on Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Quran is sent down on Muhammad. Okay. Lil-i'jazi. What's the best definition? What's the best definition you guys think would suit to say lil-i'jazi, to make it i'jaz for the people? To make it miraculous. Is that all we can say? Okay, let's use that then for now. Allah sent down the Quran on Muhammad to make it a miracle. بِسُورَةٍ مِّنْهُ, a one surah is enough for a miracle. So, let's cover this in three angles. Okay? The author, first of all, he used the word al-i'jaz. Let's discuss that first. He said that the word, point number one, the Shaykh rahimahullah, he used the word i'jaz. Are we all together, brothers? I want you to please keep with me here. When he defined what the Quran means, he said that the Quran is munazzalun, it is sent down onto Muhammad lil-i'jaz. Okay? بِسُورَةٍ مِّنْهُ, one surah from it is enough for it to be i'jaz. One surah. It doesn't have to be the whole Quran is not i'jaz necessarily. It all is, like in one surah is enough for it to be a mu'jiza. Let's stand over this word mu'jiza. This term mu'jiza is not a term that was coined by Allah and His Messenger. It hasn't come in the Quran and nor has it come in the Sunnah. Okay? You won't find that word, mu'jiza. Because mu'jiza means al-amru al-khariqu lil-'ada. Anything that's outside the norms. That's what the word mu'jiza means, right? Isn't that what miraculous means? Something that's outside the norms. That's the definition of it. And it's also, according to the mutakallimin, it's only a miracle when there is tahaddi. Tahaddi means challenge. So it has to be outside the norms, and it also has to be a what? A challenge connected to it. Am I making sense here? And that's not found in the Quran or the Sunnah. The word mu'jiza. People use that word, mu'jiza, 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 mu'jiza. The term mu'jiza is not found in the Quran or the Sunnah. It isn't. The words that are found in the Quran and the Sunnah are dala'il. Dala'il al-nubuwah. Or the word ayatul nubuwah. Or alamatul nubuwah. Are we all together, brothers? Those are the terms that we find. Dala'ilun nubuwah, ayatul nubuwah, alamatul nubuwah. Those are the terms that should be used. The reason why? If you say that the Quran is a mu'jiza, it's a miracle, it means it's a miracle because it's what? It has come with something outside the norms, and it's also a challenge. Are we all together? It's outside the norms, and it's also what? A challenge. Do we think that's the only thing that we should say that shows Nabiullah Muhammad's prophecy? Pay attention here. We say his entire biography is an indication of his prophecy. Dalailun nubuwah, alamatun nubuwah, ayatun nubuwah. His truthfulness is a sign for his prophecy. Not just what? Not just the Quran by itself that it's you refer to as a miracle. Are we all together, brothers? That's not the only thing that's a miracle. That's not the only thing that we believe is a evidence for his prophecy. وَلِذَلِكَ you find that the Quran is the strongest type of the Prophet's evidence, without a shadow of a doubt. The Quran is the strongest because the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith, مَا مِنَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ, there is no prophet. مَا مِنَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ نَبِيٌّ, there is no prophet from the prophets. إِلَّا أُعْطِيَ مِثْلَ مَا آمَنَ عَلَيْهِ الْبَشَرِ. He was given that which mankind can believe him in. There is no prophet except he was given something which mankind can believe him for. وَإِنَّمَا كَانَ الَّذِي أُوتِيتُ وَحْيًا, and that which I was given was a revelation. أَوْحَاهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيَّ, that Allah sent unto me. فَأَرْجُو, I hope because of that, أَنْ أَكُونَ أَكْثَرُهُمْ تَابِعًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, and because of that I hope that I will have the most followers the day of judgment. The Quran has something unique within the things that show his prophecy. His whole biography shows that he's a prophet. That he was an honest, truthful man. The fact that he was illiterate, he couldn't read or write, and he came up with all of this is a sign of his prophecy. True or false? Good. Like in the Quran has a unique thing that makes it amazing. And that is from all of the other miracles, all the other evidences that previous prophets came with. And the first one is the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam's Dalail al-Nubuwah, his evidences of his prophecy, from it is a revelation. The revelation is part of the prophet's evidence. Are we all together? Nabillahi Nuh, Nabillahi Musa, the evidences of their prophecy was not their what? Revelation. Nabillahi Musa, the Torah was not a Dalail al-Nubuwah, an evidence for his prophecy. Are you with me, brothers? That's what Allah said about the ayah, وَأَدْخِلْ يَدَكَ فِي جَيْبِكَ تَخْرُجْ بَيْضَاءَ مِنْ غَيْرِ سُوءٍ في 9 آيات إلى فرعون وقومه إنهم كانوا قوما فاسقين. 9 signs we've given you, Musa. Torah is not from them. Are you with me, brothers? Number 2. Nabillahi Muhammad's Dalail al-Nubuwah remains after him. Even after he dies. Even after he goes, alayhi salatu wasalam. It remains after him. Every prophet, what he came with, it ended when he ended, or when he died. Ala kulli hal. Coming back, the word i'jaz is not a word to use. And the people who coined that term were the Mu'tazilah. And you know why they coined that word i'jaz? The reason why they coined the term i'jaz was because were the Arabs able to come with the likes of the Quran? The Mu'tazila said yes, they were able to come with the likes of the Quran. But Allah turned them away from coming with these likes. Are you with me, brothers? The ability is in them, but Allah turned them from it subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's why they couldn't come with the likes of the Quran. Are you with me, brothers? Have you ever heard of something called as-sirfa? Read into that. That's what the Mu'tazila believe. They believe that the Arabs have the ability to come with the likes of the Quran, but Allah turned them away from it. Ajazahum. Allah made them weak. He subhanahu wa ta'ala, He diverted them from able to construct that. That's what that they said. And that's why they coined that term. We Ahlul Sunnah don't believe that term. We believe mu'jiza. Another mistake that he fell into, which is that he said that the reason why the Quran came down was lil-i'jaz, to weaken them. The word i'jaz, by the way, comes from the word da'f, weak. Okay? So the reason why the Quran came down was for it to be mu'jiza. That's why it came down. That's not true. The Quran didn't come down lil-i'jaz. So your statement here is not correct. It didn't come down lil-i'jaz. It came down for what reason, brothers? Lil-hidayah. It came down to guide the people. Let's read the story of Nabillahi Musa. What did Musa say? اذهبا إلى فرعون إنه طغى. أما اذهب إلى فرعون. Go to Fir'aun. إنه طغى. He exceeded his limits. فقل, say to him, هل لك إلى أن تزكى. Underline the word تزكى. وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى. 2 things was what Nabillahi Musa was trying to achieve. Tazkiyah and hidayah. He was trying to purify him and he was trying to guide him. Then the Quran, it hasn't come down lil-i'jaz, but it came down for what? Lil-hidayah. It came down for what? Lil-hidayah. It came down lil-hidayah. So let's go to the correct definition of the word Quran. Quran is Al-Quranu Kalamullahi. The best definition for the word Quran is The Quran is the speech of Allah. The speech of the angel is not called Quran, and the speech of the Prophet is not called Quran. Al-Munazzalu ala Rasulihi, it came down on Nabiullahi Muhammad. It came down on who? On Nabiullahi Muhammad. Biwasitati Jibreel, through who? Through Jibreel. There's no other prophet came down with the Quran for Nabiullahi Muhammad. Al-Manqulu ilayna bit-tawaturi, it came to us through multitude narration. Point number four in the definition is al-muta'abbadu bitilawati. We worship Allah in the recitation of it. So what leaves that definition is Hadīth al-Qudsi. Because Hadīth al-Qudsi, we don't worship Allah based on the wordings. 4 points I mentioned. Al-Qur'anu kalamullahi, the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. Point number 2, al-munazzalu ala rasulihi, it came down on Nabiullahi Muhammad biwasitati Jibreel, through Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam. Number 3, al-manqulu ilayna bit-tawaturi, the Qur'an came to us through multitude narration. And number 4, al-muta'abbadu bitilawatihi, we worship Allah and we get closer to Him by every single letter of the Qur'an. Number 5, which is the last one, point number 5, which is the last one, al-mutahadda bi suratin minhu. Allah challenged subhanahu wa ta'ala a surah from it. Al-mutahadda bi suratin minhu. A challenge has been put out for a surah from it. Now let's come to point number 5. Point number 5 is what? The definition of a surah. Sah? Definition of a surah. What does surah mean? The author rahimahullah, he explained surah means الطائفة المترجمة توقيفا وأقلها 3 آيات والآيات طائفة من كلمات القرآن المتميز بفصل. 3 points I want to mention inshallah ta'ala. 3 points I'm going to speak about here. Surah is what? It's a portion of verses that came to us through a text. The way that we know a surah is not our own ijtihad, it's tawqifi. So it's verses that came together that we were informed textually by the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. That's what surah means. Surah is ayats that came together that we came to know about it through a text from the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. This term, as-surah, is it in the Quran? Is it in the Sunnah? Was it used or was it later introduced? No, it's in the Quran. Allah said in Surah Tawbah, يحذر المنافقون أن تنزل عليهم سورة تنبئهم بما في قلوبهم يحذر المنافقون أن تنزل عليهم سورة تنبئهم بما في قلوبهم قل استهزئوا إن الله مخرج ما تحذرون. Allah said أن تنزل عليهم surah. In Surah At-Tawbah, in another place, Allah said, وَإِذَا أُنزِلَتْ سُورَةٌ أَنْ آمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَجَاهِدُوا مَعَ رَسُولِهِ اسْتَأْذَنَكَ أُولِي الطَّوْلِ مِنْهُمْ وَقَالُوا ذَرْنَا نَكُنْ مَعَ الْقَاعِدِينَ. Again, the word surah was used in that verse. وَإِذَا أُنزِلَتْ سُورَةٌ, when a verse was sent on them, or a chapter. وقال تعالى, Allah said in another place, سورة أنزلناها وفرضناها وأنزلنا فيها آيات بينات لعلكم تذكرون. The beginning of Surah An-Nur, right? And in Surah Muhammad, Allah says, ويقول الذين آمنوا لولا نزلت سورة فإذا أنزلت سورة محكمة وذكر فيها القتال رأيت الذين في قلوبهم مرض رأيت الذين في قلوبهم مرض ينظرون إليك نظر المغشي عليه من الموت. Surah Muhammad, right? And that's Surah Muhammad as well. So you can see that the word surah was used in the Quran. It's a word used in the Quran. And it's also used by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the hadith where he said, Hadith Abu Umamah al-Bahili, اقرأوا القرآن, recite the Quran, فإنه يأتي يوم القيامة شفيعا لأصحابه. Recite the Quran, for the Quran will come for the reciter the day of judgment as an intercessor. اقرأوا الزهروين من بقرة and Surah Ali Imran. The Prophet said, اقرأوا, read. الزهروين. الزهروين is what? The Prophet said, Al-Baqaratu wa Surah Ali Imran. What he used? Wa Surah Ali Imran, he said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the word surah was used by the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Also, the surahs of the Quran, it was not the Sahaba's ijtihad. The Sahabas didn't say, let's try to think of what we can make a surah or what we can't make a surah. The concept of what constitutes a surah is text, meaning it's taken from the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. وَهَذَا مَحَلُّ إِجْمَعٍ. There's no difference of opinion. That the surah, it's not for anyone to determine what is a surah or not. It's not a ijtihad that the ulama did. ولذلك السيوطي said, الإجماع والنصوص المترادفة على أن ترتيب الآيات توقيفي لا شبهة في ذلك. وأما الإجماع فنقله غير واحد منهم الزركشي وفي البرهان وأبو جعفر بن الزبير في مناسباته وعباراته ترتيب الآيات في صورها واقع بتوقيفه وأمره من غير خلاف في هذا بين المسلمين. انتهى كلامه. He said that in his what? Point number 7. Point number 6. Sorry, before we go into that, what's the minimum that a surah can be? The minimum a surah can be is how much? 3. 3 is the bare minimum. 3 is the bare minimum, as the scholars mentioned. The Quran is a miracle. In what way? It's a miracle in the wording and the meaning together. The wording and the what? And the meaning together. Another issue that the author rahimahullah he spoke about, he said ثم منه فاضل وهو كلام الله في الله ومفضول وهو كلامه تعالى في غيره. Suyuti mentioned something else, the virtue of the Quran. And he said that the Quran is not the same in virtue. The Quran is not the same in what? The Quran is not the same in virtue. Part of the Quran is more virtuous than the other part of the Quran. So which part of the Quran is more virtuous than the other? He said that the part which is more virtuous is the speech of Allah that talks about Allah. He said that's the most virtuous. And the speech that talks about other than Allah Azza wa Jalla is less virtuous. The speech of Allah that talks about other than Allah is less virtuous, and the speech of Allah that talks about Allah is more virtuous. And that speech, that statement of his is incorrect. Oh, after you guys wrote it now. It's incorrect. Why is it? What can constitute what is virtuous or not is again tawqifiyah. It's taken from Allah and His Messenger. Allah will say that this is more virtuous than this one. Because if He gives a principle like that, wherever you come in the Quran, where Allah is speaking about Himself, you will automatically say, this is better than this verse. And you have no rights to do that. Are we all together, brothers? It is Allah, the one who determines what is more virtuous than what verse is virtuous than which. That's number one, point number one. Point number two, let me finish. Point number two, the Shaykh is kind of alluding to that the issue of virtues is an amrun ijtihadiyun. It's an ijtihadi related issue. when it's not a jihad related issue. An example for that is, what's the best surah in the Quran? Yeah? What's the best surah in the Quran? Surah al-Fatiha, correct? Fatiha, half of it talks about Allah and the other half doesn't talk about Allah. Based on the hadith, قَسَمْتُ الصَّلَاةَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ عَبْدِي نِصْفَيْنِ. I divided Surah al-Fatiha in two halves. Half is Allah's and half is the creation. Surah al-Ikhlas is all of it's Allah. مع ذلك Surah al-Fatiha is better. Are you with me, brothers? You have questions too? What's your question? We can say that this surah, one of the reasons why it's virtuous is because it has the names of Allah mentioned this much times. La shakka, we can say that. But we can't give a general ruling and say that an ayah or a surah is more virtuous than another based on this criteria alone. No. This issue is tawqifi. Allah tells us what is more virtuous than which. And His Messenger tells us it. So it's not a mas'ala ijtihadiyun, where a scholar looks at a verse and he says, I realize that this verse speaks about Allah more than this verse, so it's better than this verse. Are you with me, brothers? That's not permissible. Another thing is, some scholars have held the opinion, can the speech of Allah be virtuous part of it than another? Because when you say the Quran, this verse surah is better than this surah, you're in essence saying Allah's speech here is better than His speech here. Are you allowed to say that? Some scholars, they said, just because a virtue was mentioned for a particular surah doesn't make the other surah mafdulun, low in rank, because that surah can be higher than this surah in something else. Are you with me, brothers? And they say it's not nice to refer to the Quran fadilun wa mafdulun. Are you with me, brothers? Some scholars, they say that. Some scholars are of that opinion. They say that what you say is, if Ayatul Kursi is better than all the other surahs in this issue, then other ayahs might be better than Ayatul Kursi in another issue. Okay? Another issue that the author goes into, which is the seventh issue, yeah? The seventh issue, which he mentions is وَتَحْرِيمُ قِرَاءَتُهُ. It is prohibited to read the Quran بِالْعَجَمِيَّةِ, in a foreign language, وَبِالْمَعْنَى, and it's also prohibited to read it by meaning, وَتَفْسِيرُهُ بِالرَّأْيِ, and also to read it in terms of opinion. Three things the author mentions that you can't do regarding the speech of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Write this down. Everyone write this down. It's important. The author goes into mentioning three things that you can't do, that are prohibited, that are haram. The first one is تحريم قراءة القرآن بالعجمية. You can't read the Quran in another language. You can't. Because Allah said in the Quran, وَإِنَّهُ لَتَنزِيلُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينُ عَلَىٰ قَلْبِكَ لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ بِلِسَانٍ عَرَبِيٍّ مُبِينٍ. The Quran is in the Arabic language. بِلِسَانٍ عَرَبِيٍّ مُبِينٍ. You're not allowed to read it in another language. That's the first prohibited thing that he mentioned. The second thing that he said that is prohibited is reciting the Quran based on meaning. You forgot a verse and you say, I know what the meaning was, let me just use my own wordings, as long as I come up with the meaning, no problem. No. You cannot read the Quran based on meaning. You forgot a verse and you say, I know it was talking about, instead of saying, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا, you don't remember it, so you say, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. إِنَّهُ, the dhamir goes back to who? It goes back to the human. But you said, I'll just bring the word in. The ism dhahir is said, the dhamir. You're not allowed to. The Quran is verbatim, word for word, haraka, letter, everything. No playing around with it. You have to bring it as it is. Are you with me, brothers? You can't put one verse before the other, one letter before the other. No. Everything, leave it the way it is. You cannot put one before the other and delay another one from it. So this brings us to a very important issue, which is the Quran is talaqqi and sama'. The Quran is heard, and that's how it's taken. لَيْسَتْ بِالْإِجْتِهَادِ وَالْإِبْتِدَاءِ. The Quran is not read based on your ijtihad and innovation and no. The Quran, if you're reading it, you have to have evidence for it. If you're going to read it like this, you need to have evidence for it. Are you with me, brothers? What's the evidence for that? The evidence for that is the hadith of Amr ibn al-Harith ibn al-Mustaliq. He said that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ahabba," anyone who loves, and yaqra al-Quran, anyone who wants to read the Quran. Pay attention. غَضًّا كَمَا أُنزِلَ, as it was sent down. The Quran sent down as it was. فَلْيَقْرَأ عَلَى قِرَاءَةِ ابْنِ عَبْدٍ. Let him recite the recitation of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Read in the recitation of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Another example to show you that the Quran is taken, it's passed on, is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Sakhbarati Abu Ma'mar, he said, سمعت ابن مسعود, I heard Abdullah ibn Mas'ud يقول, saying, علمني رسول الله, the messenger taught me, التشهد, the messenger taught me the tashahhud, كما يعلمني السورة من القرآن, the way he taught me a surah from the Quran. Meaning he taught me the tashahhud the way he taught me the Quran. Meaning the Quran was taken from the messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Are you with me, brothers? Also Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Abbas, and he said, كان رسول الله يعلمنا التشهد كما يعلمنا سورة من القرآن. The letters of the tashahhud, the way we're reading it, the way I'm reading my tashahhud, I heard it from the Prophet, the way I took the Quran from the Prophet. Are we all together, brothers? So all of this, what does it show? It shows that the Quran is taken. As a side point, 3 minutes. As a side point, what's the ruling in tajweed now? We have to come to that concept of tajweed right now, sah? Where the person reads the Quran with tajweed. The mistakes that happen in the Quran are two types. Al-lahnu al-khafi and al-lahnu al-jali. There is a big mistake you can do, okay? And there's a hidden mistake a person can do. An apparent mistake and a hidden mistake. If it's an apparent mistake, then you have to learn to read for it. It's changing the meaning. It's distorting the meaning. Are we all together? You have to. What do you have to do? You have to take it from a teacher who corrects your pronunciation. This is obligatory. Okay? Because Allah said in the Quran, وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. وَلِذَلِكَ Jazari, what does he say? وَمَنْ لَمْ يُجَوِّدْ, anyone who doesn't recite the Quran in tajweed, he's what? He's athim, he said, he's a sinner. That's the meaning that will change the Quran. The second type of mistake that can happen to the recitation of the Quran is called al-lahnul khafi. It's a hidden mistake. Okay, it's not apparent, it's a hidden mistake. That's the one where it's connected to the med and how long it is. It won't change the meaning. It's also connected to the things like that. This doesn't have a problem. And that is not the one where you're a sinner if you don't read it like that. You will still consider to be a reciter based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, the one who recites the Quran, مَثَلُ الَّذِي يَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنَ وَهُوَ حَافِظٌ لَهُ مَعَ سَفَرَةِ الْكَرَامَةِ الْبَرَرَةِ. He's with the angels. وَمَثَلُ الَّذِي يَقْرَأُ, and the one who recites the Quran, وَهُوَ يَتَعَاهَدُ, he is trying his hardest to read it, وَهُوَ عَلَيْهِ شَاقٌ, and it's hard on him, it's heavy on him, فَلَهُ أَجْرَانِ, he has 2 rewards. The Prophet referred to the one who was struggling to have how many rewards? Double the reward. 2 rewards. He was still called a reciter. Okay? And then we'll go into the next part inshallah after the salah. بإذن الله الكريم.